Thank you for joining me for another episode of Tips and Tricks for Writing Fics. This was episode 4, and we'll be talking about theme and voice. Now, I already have an episode featuring theme and voice for the manuscript edition, and that's probably going to give you still more information than I will here. However, this is more focusing on the minor quirks and variances that you need to change these techniques to fit fanfiction. Because it is different. We need to accept that fact. Fanfiction is slightly different. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some information to where you can better, carry your story. This is more so focusing on how you write it and the physicality of it, and just kind of help you bring the theme out. So let's see. Theme and voice go hand in hand. They're one and the same. You can't have one without establishing the other, and vice versa. So and there's so many different examples of theme and what we perceive to be the voice of that theme. And hopefully I'm going to cover some examples to kind of help you distinguish, just to give you a feel of exactly what I'm talking about. And depending on the theme you choose is really going to have an impact on the voice or the wording that you use, the sentence structure, and in particularly dialogue. Because with the themes such as human drama or sci-fi or questing, it's really going to influence how you word things and how your characters are going to talk. So see to it that your voice will fit the theme, that will fit the genre. If you're doing a human drama, you're going to want mostly frank language. You're gonna want to be pretty thorough, but pretty honest with what you say. So you're not going to use a lot of flowery language unless you're going through a high emotion area, especially in the narrative. You're going to want to use what they call purple prose. Is you're going to use the 50-cent words, the big fancy words, and you're going to want to get a little fancy with what you talk about. Like if it's a love scene or a character's in mourning or a character's afraid, you're going to want to get into the fancy words. But for the most part, you're going to want to stay casual. Or if you're doing a fantasy or horror, you're going to want to kind of even out how much literal language you use with metaphorical language. You're going to want to use if purple is fancy and white is casual, you're going to want to make it like almost a lavender or periwinkle, somewhere right in there. If you can better judge by colors, a light purple. You're going to want to find a balance between the two. And sci-fi is probably the most different out of the lot of them, is that you're going to want highly detailed but casual language, because especially with sci-fi, you're going to have a lot of electronical devices, and your reader's going to be curious how they work. And if you have an opportunity to describe how they work, you're going to want to use very succinct and to-the-point language so that you're not, overfeeding your reader or drawing the sentence structure out too far. You're basically want to tell it like it is, as efficiently as possible with sci-fi. But there's room for purple language in sci-fi also, especially if maybe you're describing an alien world or some astrological phenomena like a nebula or a black hole or a supernova. Things like that. There is room for poetic speaking. You kind of have to find the happy medium. And as you go, you're going to be able to instinctually find it and carry it on. And of course, writing in general is about expressing yourself, not necessarily everybody else, but expressing your own personal feelings, how you see the world or the worlds you're building, and how you interpret things going on around you, or how you interpret the things your characters are going through, the canon characters are going through. So your own discretion is really gonna carry, what makes your story unique. And that's one of the things you really want to try and do when you're working in fan fiction. Original work aside, you're going to want to make your your work unique in any possible way, but still keep to your canon. And especially if you're writing an AU, an altered universe, you're going to want to take care to really flesh out this altered universe, but still keep your characters. But as you go, your own style is going to develop. It's just you're going to grow as a writer the more you write, and it's just, you're going to find these things a lot easier. You won't have to think about them consciously. So dang, this one really is short. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of tips for this. If you want more information, please check out the manuscript edition of Theme and Voice. It's going to give you a lot more than I can here, because this is more about the variances on stuff I've already built. And I'm also doing a theme special, because with the genre and theme that I did originally, it didn't really talk so much about the kinds of stories you're telling. That's what theme really is the underlying morality of what you're working on. So I want to do a special episode on theme specifically, because there's so many different types of stories you can tell, and that's really going to carry the voice that you use. So keep an eye out for that. But we have reached the end of my tips. Like I said, you can check back on the manuscript edition for more. Quick recap, though. Theme and voice go hand in hand. You can't really have one without firmly establishing the other. Just keep that in mind, and just it's going to show in your final work that you consciously maintain the idea of one can't survive without the other. Make sure that the language, the sentence structure, the types of language you use fit your theme. Human drama is going to be pretty casual, but with little bits of fancy in there. Dress it up just a little, but mostly you're going to want to do that in emotional situations. If it's a high tension, you're really going to want to, or if it's a high tension or fear, or sorrow or joy, or if it's a love scene, you're really going to want to get into the fancy purple language there. But otherwise, keep it casual. You don't need to get too highfalutin with your words with a human drama unless it emotionally calls for it. And with fantasy and horror, you need to find a balance between fancy and casual. Although fantasy is probably going to be a little more purple than horror, because with horror, telling it exactly how it is really going to bring out whatever it is that your characters are suddenly afraid of. Stephen King being a perfect example. He was literal about what it looked like. He used common language, simple sentence structure, and just to the point adjectives that told you exactly what it looked like at the time. And that just made it all the more terrifying. The scene that stands out to me most is when it became the sea monster to kill the little boy. It became the creature from the Black Lagoon, quite specifically, if I remember correctly, to just crush this child. And it really stood out to me because of how succinct the language was. It talked about the color of the creature. Even though it was dark, there was coloration to it, and it was covered in slime, and it had scales and spikes and claws, and it was dripping. And he used really precise, casual language that really brought out, oh my god, this is real. You know, so the language you use really does carry the intent. So you're going to learn it by doing, but it's something to keep in mind. Depending on what theme you're working with, it's really going to affect the language you use, or whatever emotion you're trying to convey is really going to have an impact on how you convey it. And sci-fi and horror, you're going to use really vivid language. You're going to try and be as precise, as to the point as you can. But when you're describing something a little more organic, something other than electrical workings or a machine or a computer program, if you're describing a landscape or an astrological phenomena, you're going to want to use that bright organic language. You're going to want to use a little bit of purple in there. But in the end, it is up to you how the story goes, how it is physically executed on the screen or on paper, or however you choose to express yourself. It's completely up to you, but these are some good things to keep in mind to really help you bring that story to life and to make it presented in a form that your readers are going to be receptive to. So, and in the end, if they really like your story, in a way, they're probably going to fall in love with your style too. So I've had a couple of readers just simply just remark on how I do things and how much they really enjoy and get enticed by the physical execution of how I write. So just keep that in mind. How you write things is equally as important as what you're writing about. So just keep those tips in mind. So yeah, that's episode 4, theme and voice. Again, if you want more information, you can check back to my manuscript edition of this of the same topic, and hopefully you're looking forward to this theme specific episode. And let's see, that's episode 4, theme and voice. And next episode, we're looking at alternate universes and universes altered. It's going to be nothing but taking characters you love, putting them in another time and place, or taking the universe you love and just adding a little bit to it. So hopefully this will give you some tips on how to better just weave a better original story and how to keep the canon characters canon with subtle changes to make sure that they fit. So if there's anything I didn't cover or you have any questions, please leave a comment, or you can check out luckyfirerabbit.deviantart.com. You can reach me there, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can, and if I can't, I'll try and answer your questions in a video. So yeah, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you tuning in for Theme and Voice for Fanfictions, and I hope to see you again in Universes Altered and Alternate Universe. Catch you on the flip side.